Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. Recently, the Chinese President Xi Jinping was in Europe and he was visiting and he was doing a round of diplomacy around the country to country. And you guys would have all heard about it and read about it. What was interesting was to see the reaction of each country in Europe on the way they were treating the president of China on arrival. And it kind of harked back to the days of old, the days of post World War II, how the communist bloc was there and the Western bloc was there. Talking about the Cold War in Europe. Europe was divided in two. You had the Western blocs led by United States, which included the NATO countries, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The major Western European countries in that bloc were United Kingdom, France, West Germany, Italy, and the others. These main reason they were politically aligned was the democratic institutions and the high degree of political freedom in these countries, and the market-based economy is what they believed in. Well, you had the Eastern Bloc. The Eastern Bloc comprised of the Soviet companies which were led by the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was a defense treaty established in 1955 to counterbalance NATO. And this bloc included countries such as the East Germans, Poland, Czechoslovakia, which is not there anymore, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and others within the Soviet sphere of influence. The governments in these countries were communist, their economies were centrally planned and state controlled, and political freedoms were highly restricted, and dissent was often met with repression. Of course, the main physical symbolic division of Europe at the time was the Berlin Wall, and everyone remembers Winston Churchill's famous speech where he says an iron curtain has fallen on Europe. So this stark representation was there. Of course, there were neutral countries in the middle of all this. Not only Switzerland. Switzerland is a famous neutral country which everyone remembers. We also had Sweden, Austria, and Finland, who maintained their neutrality during these times, and they helped in negotiating between both sides when tensions were flaring up. This is how it was divided. Then all of this disappeared during the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, and Soviet Union finally dissolved in 1991, which marked the end of the Cold War era, and Europe was a united continent supposedly at the time, and everything was free market and everyone wanted free market economies, everyone wanted political freedom. And I remember everyone saying, never again will this happen. The world is moving forward. The new age of enlightenment, a new renaissance, as they say, that the dark days are behind us. People are far more enlightened and we'll never go back into the world we were. Funnily enough, history tends to repeat itself. And this is very evident when you look at Europe now. The European Union itself is very divided. There are member states who don't seem to agree with each other. And even close working partners like France and Germany and Italy, as well as the former members of the Eastern Bloc, Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, are all on various different sides now in Europe, thanks to the economic pressures they're facing internally in each country domestically, and the economic integration and the political cooperation and the shared policy on trade, agriculture and fish and regional development is on thin ice. And every moment, especially now with climate change and the pressures of supporting Ukraine against Russia and the Chinese influence, has led each one to look internally and first make sure they're domestically settled and pleased before they agree to anything vocally as a bloc. NATO also remains a military alliance, true. But even in NATO, there seems to be a lot of division on who is allowed to join, what is actual NATO's obligations, and the previous members of the Soviet bloc, such as Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, are also keen to join the Western alliances. And they definitely do not want to go back into the Soviet days. In the middle of all this, there is an Eastern European alignment happening slowly, and those are countries are also which are part of NATO and EU. But they sympathize with the Russian friends and they seem to feel it is a little unfair what is happening. And maybe Russia is warranted in the aggression it is exhibiting towards Ukraine. And people like Viktor Orban in Hungary and others are claiming that maybe Putin is valid in what he's saying. And Russia does maintain some influence in Europe still, in countries, parts of Ukraine, believe it or not, support Russia. Georgia, Moldova are countries which have Russian interest and Russian influence over them. And since the actions which were taken in 2014 rekindled the Western-Eastern divide in Europe. Neutrality and non-alignment is also funnily there Switzerland, for example, strictly remains neutral, while countries like Finland, Sweden have traditionally been neutral, have somewhat shifted their positions and taken the Western side, the fear of what's happening in Russia. And they perceive that once done with Ukraine, Russia has wider ambitions and it might look at Finland and Sweden too. So, in middle of all this, the Chinese are also sitting and they're also struggling with their European alliances and partners. Like I said, with the post-pandemic, what has happened, especially of the handling of the pandemic in China, with information dissemination being very poor and the world not really understanding what is happening, and a lot of blame game going on at post-pandemic which happened, and the severe economic stress the world has faced since the pandemic, and the glut which is there in Chinese factory because of lack of domestic demand and China dumping has led to a lot of tension. And also the Chinese-American tension has also forced Europeans to take sides. Either are you with the Americans or are you with the Chinese is what is happening. So this is harking back to the days of old, the days of Cold War, and it seems like we're getting ready for another Cold War part 2. Though they seem to be downplaying it and saying, no, it is not as bad as that. And the Chinese also saying it's not as bad as that. Because simple reason, the world is far more interconnected than we were back in those days, thanks to the internet and technology and global economies. We all have other interests in each other's country, and we definitely cannot afford an all-out Cold War where we refuse to communicate and refuse to trade with each other. That is next to impossible now. But what is happening is upping the ante and trying to brush each other the wrong way is definitely going on. So as an investor, this is something you should keep in mind and you should pay attention. It always pays well in great dividends studying history. Charlie Munger has said this, Warren Buffett believes in this, even Anand has said this many times. Studying history gives you insight into what is happening now and definitely will help you to understand how humans behave and countries behave going forward in the days and months ahead of us. So this is the food of thought I wanted to offer you. What is happening in Europe is very interesting and we should pay attention to this as investors, because whatever we do, investors in the long term, in the horizons of 15, 20 years plus. So how Europe is going to be shaped is important to us as investors. So I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. And I would like to hear your opinions about Cold War Part 2. What do you think it is? Do you think it is a lot of fuss over nothing, that given a few years things will finally settle down? Or we are getting more and more closer to a warmer war than a Cold War? Whatever your views are, do share it down in the comments. We'll have a look at that and maybe do another video to follow this one. Thanks for watching the video and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.
It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.